In a bustling cafe near a military base, an ordinary afternoon took a shocking turn when a woman's ignorant demand stunned everyone. She locked eyes on a young black soldier, proudly wearing his uniform, and marched over, her words laced with entitlement. "You shouldn't be wearing that." The room fell silent. Her audacity left everyone frozen, but what came next changed everything. With calm resolve and unwavering dignity, the soldier responded in a way that left the crowd speechless, turning the tide of the moment. His words didn't just challenge her prejudice, they carried a lesson in respect, unity, and the true meaning of honor. What exactly did he say that stopped this woman in her tracks? Stick around to hear the unforgettable exchange that had everyone rethinking their perspective. You won't believe how one moment can shift an entire room and inspire beyond it. The woman's accusation hung in the air, her tone sharp and unapologetic. She pointed at the soldier's uniform as though it offended her, repeating, "People like you don't deserve to wear that." Gasps rippled through the cafe as customers exchanged stunned glances. Some looked ready to intervene, while others froze, unsure of what to do. The soldier, whose name tag read Johnson, didn't flinch. He stood tall, his posture steady despite the tension in the room. His calm demeanor seemed to contrast sharply with the heated words coming from the woman. Who was she, and why would she say such a thing? Everyone's eyes were locked on him, waiting to see how he would respond. What no one knew yet was the story behind his uniform, the sacrifices, the battles, and the deep pride he carried for his service. Little did they realize, his next words would leave them all in awe. The woman's voice grew louder, drawing even more attention. "What have you ever done to earn that uniform? My family served, real Americans served." Her words were cutting, but her assumptions couldn't have been further from the truth. Others in the cafe began whispering, some shaking their heads in disbelief. A man near the counter looked ready to step in, but Johnson raised a hand, silently signaling him to hold back. He wasn't going to let the moment spiral out of control. There was a quiet strength in his eyes, a mix of patience and resolve that made those watching lean in closer, curious to see how he handled such blatant disrespect. What the woman didn't know, and what the room was about to discover, was Johnson's story. The years he spent serving, the sacrifices he made, and the unwavering pride he carried for his uniform weren't just about him. They represented something far greater, something the woman clearly couldn't see. Every second of silence stretched the tension tighter, leaving everyone wondering how he would break it. Johnson finally broke the silence, his voice calm but firm enough to command the room's attention. "Ma'am," he began, his words deliberate, "do you know what this uniform represents?" His question hung in the air, but the woman scoffed, crossing her arms defensively. The crowd leaned in, their curiosity mounting as they watched the confrontation unfold. "It represents sacrifice," Johnson continued, his tone unwavering. "It represents every soldier who put their life on the line, regardless of where they came from or what they looked like. I've worn it through places you couldn't imagine, not for recognition, but because I believe in protecting the freedoms we all share." His words didn't faze her. Instead, she rolled her eyes. "People like you don't understand real sacrifice," she snapped. The tension in the cafe became almost unbearable as others stared, waiting to see what Johnson would say next. The weight of his unspoken story lingered in the air, holding everyone captive as he took a deep breath, ready to reveal something that no one saw coming. Johnson's steady composure never wavered, but his next words carried an edge that silenced even the faintest murmurs in the room. "You're right," he said, his voice calm but cutting through the tension like a blade. "You don't know my sacrifices, but let me tell you one thing. I've lost brothers and sisters in this uniform, and some of them look just like me." The woman flinched, her confidence faltering for the first time. Johnson continued, his voice now filled with quiet emotion. "One of those brothers saved my life in the middle of a firefight. He didn't ask about my skin color or my background. He just acted because that's what we do. We stand for each other and for this country." As his words hung in the air, someone at the back of the cafe suddenly stood up. An older man, dressed casually, but with a bearing that spoke of his own military past, slowly approached. "He's right," the man said, his voice heavy with authority, "and I can prove it." All eyes shifted to the newcomer, and the room buzzed with curiosity. What did this stranger know, and how was he connected to the unfolding drama? The stakes had just risen, leaving everyone desperate for answers. The older man stepped forward, his expression a mix of authority and calm determination. "I served in Vietnam," he said, his voice cutting through the tense silence. "And I've seen men of all races fight and die for this country. The color of their skin didn't matter then, and it doesn't matter now. What matters is the heart and courage it takes to wear that uniform." The woman blinked, her bravado crumbling as the older man turned to Johnson and offered a crisp salute. "Thank you for your service, soldier," he said, his tone filled with respect. Johnson returned the salute, gratitude flickering in his eyes. But then, the twist no one saw coming. The man reached into his pocket and pulled out a faded photograph. "This," he said, holding it up, "is my unit. That man right there saved my life, and he looked just like you." The photo showed a group of soldiers, one unmistakably black, smiling alongside the older man. The woman's face turned pale as the room erupted into murmurs. She seemed at a loss for words, her earlier confidence shattered. Johnson, calm as ever, turned to her one last time. "It's not about me, ma'am. It's about all of us, together." The cafe erupted in applause, and as the woman quietly slipped away, the older man and Johnson sat down, two generations united by an unbreakable bond of service and sacrifice. As the cafe settled back into a hum of conversation, the moment lingered in everyone's minds. Johnson and the older man shared a quiet conversation, their bond unspoken but deeply understood. The crowd slowly dispersed, many glancing back at the soldier with newfound respect. What had begun as an ugly confrontation had transformed into something powerful, a reminder of unity, sacrifice, and the strength found in diversity. Johnson finished his coffee, thanked the older man, and stood to leave. As he walked out, a small boy tugged at his mother's sleeve, pointing at Johnson with wide eyes. "He's a real hero, isn't he?" the boy whispered. His mother smiled, nodding. "Yes, he is." Outside, the air felt lighter, the tension of the day fading. Johnson straightened his uniform and walked on, carrying with him not just the weight of his service, but the hope that his actions might inspire understanding in others.